culture is important to us. I want there to be that good experience for that family coming in. That doesn't mean they stay here. If I can get them in here, great. If they need to go to another provider because of their skill set, let's do it. You want to keep that culture, but you got to find those people that have that same passion. It truly is challenging.
It's the hardest part.
Yeah. Gosh, you get the right people in place and you can do it.
Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming on here to the NWA Founders podcast. Before we dive in, one thing we like to give is just for everyone to get a 30-second overview of like what the business is, what the organization is. And this is the first time we've had two guests at one time. So I'm going to try to like bounce back and forth. But will one of y'all give us kind of the overview of the whole organization?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we are a pediatric therapy company. We started out as a pediatric speech and physical therapy company, and we've expanded into occupational therapy, applied behavioral analysis, and also have the only school in Northwest Arkansas for kids with disabilities, an accredited school. And we also operate a typical preschool.
Well, and tell us each of your backgrounds, where you grew up, like where you went to school, and kind of when did the world of therapy come into your lens? I know each of you do something different, kind of have a different background in therapy, but.
Well, I came to the University of Arkansas to become a speech language pathologist in 1990. And so I did not know that was what I was going to come to the university to do. I started out as a communications major. And I would often go home and my dad would say, "What are you going to do with that?" And I was like, I'm going to talk and make money. And he was like, okay. But I actually had a Sunday school teacher in high school who was a speech pathologist at the public schools at Union in Tulsa. Mm. And I can remember her talking about it. And I was like, well, she helps people talk. And I went and observed her, my sophomore year during spring break, and I just fell in love with it. And I also went to a hospital in Tulsa and observed the adult side. Interestingly enough, when I started school, I thought, I'm going to be an adult speech language pathologist. No. Once I got into my practicum hours at the University of Arkansas and then in grad school at Northeastern State, I was like, nope, kids are where it's at. Yeah. And I've been kids 100% since then. But that's just a little quick background of why I landed in speech language pathology. But I have a husband, 2 girls that have grown up with T.E.A.M as a part of their life, which I love because they've been around all kids. I think that's important for everyone. Mm-hmm. They're accepting of whomever. It's just been their life since they were little. And grew up in Tulsa, and came over here and got stuck, fell in love with Northwest Arkansas and all it has to offer. So, started out doing speech language pathology for Springdale schools, straight out of school. And I loved it, but I was so confined, on who I could help and how much I could help. And I was like, wait, this isn't why I went to school. This isn't my calling. My calling is to help them, whatever they need, not to be bound by certain rules and regulations. They have to follow those, I understand, in the education realm. But my heart was like, and I would constantly get in trouble for putting someone on my caseload that wasn't severe enough, for public school therapy. And I'm like, but they need help with that. And like I said, not to say anything at schools. That's just not what my calling was. My calling was to help whomever, wherever you fall on that spectrum of needing help with communication. So interestingly enough, our pastor put on our heart to do some prayer and fasting in 2000 and the early 2000s. I honestly don't remember the exact year, but my husband and I agreed to do that. And through that prayer and fasting, the Lord called us to start my practice, which was a speech therapy practice. Mm-hmm. And I remember being so scared thinking, what if we don't have any patients? Because that's how you get paid in this world. And my husband was like, I don't think the Lord would call us to it if we weren't going to have patience. And that was all she wrote. Here we are today. And I'm, all the time thinking, like, pinching myself, like, is this really my life? Like, I figured I would just be me doing speech therapy. Like, when I took that leap, I didn't think I would meet someone as amazing as Kim, who we share a lot of the same, philosophies and passion and faith and all that. I would have never in 100 years dreamed that, but the Lord crossed our paths. Gosh, I was pregnant with my first. So like 1999, the summer of 1999. And I can remember seeing her. See, I was in a motorhome doing speech therapy. We were working for a company doing summer therapy with kids. And I was in a motorhome. Kim was in a hotel pool. And the motorhome was parked outside the hotel pool. And I remember seeing her and how she interacted with kids. And I was like, she's awesome. Like if I had a child that needed therapy, I would want them to see her, and that was kind of my thing. And then we would just talk, passing patients back and forth. There was never a deep conversation. It was just like what you see. And I was like, oh, she's cool. And so then, went on a few years later and our paths crossed again. And that gave us the opportunity to come together and serve kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
And talk about kind of, it seemed like you knew from the very beginning, like, this is like passion, your calling. Maybe talk about that moment a little bit more. Like, how did you know? Maybe for people who are, because you found it early, like you found it from the beginning. It seems like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, it was just something in my gut that I was wired to do. I mean, I see it in my oldest child is also in healthcare. And, I think sometimes you're wired that way and then it's fed over the years. But I don't know. It was just something and it was so rewarding. Like, I can't imagine doing something else. I see other people that do things and I'm grateful, but I'm like, but you don't get to do what I do. You don't get to experience those gains, that I do. But I think it was just like, I love to talk. I can't imagine not being able to communicate and wanting to give other people some means to communicate. Mm-hmm. It may not be the way I communicate, and that's okay, but everybody has that need.
Yeah. And Kim, give us your background here too.
Sure. Yeah. I was born in Washington Regional. Like, I have been here for a long time. Grew up in Fayetteville, and I was a competitive gymnast, taught gymnastics at the Williams Center on crossover.
You may have taught me back in the day.
Maybe. Yeah. Had a knee injury, and had a great physical therapist. And I was like, that's kind of a cool profession. And I am a huge sports fan. I love, anything athletics. And so decided to go to PT school and wanted to go as far away as possible, really. Like, I've been in Fayetteville my whole life. So that wasn't possible. I needed to go where I got a scholarship. So I went to Arkansas State. I was fortunate enough to kind of get out and do my internships at different places, in Florida and some great spots, and thought that I would eventually, maybe take a job somewhere like that and get out for a little bit, but then realized during that time that, man, Northwest Arkansas is pretty great. There's a lot of things, and it's beautiful, and family and all that. So came back and looked for a job in, athletics or orthopedic sports medicine kind of thing, and didn't land anything. It was bizarre. So I went to work for a company that was pediatrics, actually doing aquatic therapy in a hotel pool that was freezing. And then we also did therapy in a motorhome that had steps, and we have kids with wheelchairs. So anyway, I worked there for about a year and just was like, we can do better than this. This is not great for kids in our community, and kind of went to the owners and asked for things to change. And they're like, nope, it wasn't going to change. And then there were some things happening that were just not on the ups. So I just felt like, if this doesn't change, my husband's like, you have to make a stand. You have to just say, I can't stay any longer. So I quit the job, been there about a year, which, you get out of school and you have all these like hopes and you're like ready to change the world. And then you like are in this job that is like not great and you quit. My husband just got in anesthesia school in Kansas City. And someone said, hey, I have a couple patients that need services like Lincoln in their homes. And if you want to see them, I'll teach you how to do the billing. Well, I didn't have a job. And so I said, okay, I'll go out there. I'll go see him. So I started doing that. My husband was at school, and it just kind of grew to seeing more and more kids in their homes until I was working, 12, 15-hour days, driving to kids' homes, seeing them, doing the documentation on paper, figuring out how to build different insurance companies, all that, until I could get a space and then start hiring people. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then able to hire and grow from there.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 24. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So never anticipated owning my own business or starting it or anything. But I just was open to doing better for our community. And I saw a need. And when someone presented like, hey, you can go see them on your own. Okay. Like I felt like, again, my background in faith. I'm like, if the Lord opens a door, and you feel right, you should walk through it. And I kind of have always been that way, and it worked out. Yeah. And so she kind of told the story of how we met and combined our companies. Also, just treating those, going into the homes was so important in the beginning. It's not just like kind of what you see here where you see a kid and not their family usually isn't with them. But going to their home and seeing their needs kind of established how we built the practice. And that like, we're not just going to go in and do physical therapy and work on, goals listed on the evaluation. I'm going to go above and beyond. These people, they need a lot of help. The families I saw in their homes needed help getting out of a car, or helping their kids get bathed, or like, things in school, speech therapy, like all the things that they needed. And so we've kind of built the practice around, listen, we want you to bring them in and see them for their required minutes and bill for it. But it doesn't stop there. Like, what else do they need? How can we help them with family support? Do they need other services? And so going into those homes initially kind of set the foundation. And then what we talked about before about going to another country and me ended up adopting a daughter with special needs has kind of continued that mission of meeting all of their needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was anyone else doing anything similar at the time?
No, not really. Not really at all. It was like everyone went to school to be a physical therapist for honestly, the sexy part of a physical therapist is like getting people in athletics like back to their
peak physical condition.
Their peak, which is amazing, and I love that. But there just wasn't a lot. And if if a child had a need, they would get that in the public school system, which is great, but also takes away from your academic time. And some of the things, can happen outside of school, so it doesn't interfere and can make them do better, help them do better in school.
Mm-hmm. So early on, we'll call it around 2000-ish. That's when your paths collided.
Yeah.
You were doing speech, you were doing physical therapy, and y'all just decided, hey, let's do this together. It wasn't named Children's Therapy Team then, was it? Y'all were just kind of, okay. And how many patients who need physical therapy need speech therapy or vice versa? Is that overlap pretty great?
I mean, on the little ones, when there's a developmental delay, it's usually global, meaning across the board. But you can definitely need speech and not need OT or PT or vice versa, any combination. So we like to look at the whole child and meet their need. Like, I don't want to bring in a child and go, oh my goodness, they're so far behind in speech and that's all I care about. Mm-hmm. It's like all those things can go together. And so addressing those is only going to help the speech part. Mm-hmm. It actually happened last week in an evaluation where it was like, I met with a child and the parents were bringing them in for speech. And it was like, oh, they mentioned some OT concerns and PT concerns. I feel let's tackle it all, and it's my job as a speech language pathologist to educate the parent as much as I can of what I'm seeing that OT can help and PT can help. Like she said, it's a global thing. I'm not just going to help him start talking. I believe that's an injustice to that child, or to that parent. It's just like when I go to the doctor, excuse me, I want them to tell me all the things that I need to work on. It may not be fun, but, hopefully they'll come alongside me and help me with that. And that's what we want to do here, whatever that is.
But y'all were doing that from inception, right? Like I'd say that's a differentiator in your business, in your company, the way you're serving patients.
And that's kind of where the name T.E.A.M came from, is because we work together to meet the needs of the family. It's not one of us. There's a whole team, and the parents are the leader of that team. Yeah. And we follow their lead. What are your hopes and aspirations for your child? What do you want to see them? And then also that education piece for us, empowering them on how to help their child.
So when y'all were joining forces at the beginning, was there that vision? I mean, did you sit down and lay out, hey, because the organization is massive today. The amount of kids, and we'll get there, but the amount of kids that you were telling me earlier, how that you see a week, I could not believe it.
I don't know if we ever sat down and said, this is what we're going to do. It's just what.
We didn't. It's what she said in the, a beginning, like she said, that's someone I would want to work with my child. And I felt the same way about her. It's just that we're just like-minded in that. The people we try to hire and the leadership team that we hire, doesn't matter how much really skill you have, but if you have that like-mindedness of what our mission is about, then we'll bring you on board and give you the skills you need. So we never, and I think that's probably what my husband was referring to that time. There's no way she should be successful. There's no strategic planning from the beginning. It was like, hey, we know what we need to do in the community. We know what our community needs. We know what our families and patients are telling us that they're missing and the lack of services. And it is up to us. I literally felt the weight of my shoulder. It is up to us to help these families and children succeed because nobody else is doing it. So that's when we opened our first clinic together in 2005, and it's the location on Joyce. We had maybe 1,200 square feet there and just started hiring.
What did that feel like? The first location?
Overwhelming. Oh my goodness. I thought my very first location was on my own. I had 600 square feet. And of course my parents had to sign the lease and give me money, and I didn't get paid for probably, I don't know, maybe 2 years. It was a long time. I was back in college living off my parents. My husband was in school. I was living with them. It's crazy.
Well, no, and just from I have the real estate background, but seeing when someone a brand new startup comes in looking to sign a lease, it's the landlord's okay, there's a big risk here. Yeah. Even 1,200 square feet. Yeah. It's
sure.
That
one on Joyce was a big, because it was kind of we kind of built it out a little bit. But the 600 square feet, I think was $400 maybe a month. It was hardly anything, but I can not. But signing that one I had someone sign it with me, so I felt a little bit better. It wasn't just on me. But we're still there from 2005. We just gradually kept taking more.
I just remember meeting with the designers and the architects, and I'm what are they talking about? It was just we're therapists. We say that all the time. She is very much business minded. I'm just the warm fuzzy person, but I'm oh, what are they talking about?
For 5 years, we have to pay $2,000 a month for 5 years.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. But scary.
And talk about how many other staff that y'all had at the time. Was it just y'all two, or did you have
We had other people,
employees?
But gosh, there weren't many.
Maybe 10 total.
Yeah.
And that's in 2005-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sign the lease, you're starting, we'll call that the real inception. You both had other practices and were operating those and growing, but then you really team up.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call it, that's probably when the name comes about and some company vision. That's 2005. So how do you go about hiring people? And I assume at that time, you're probably hiring people Are they a few years younger than y'all in your?
During that time, most of them were older than me, I would say. We didn't really, I wasn't comfortable hiring new grads. I felt like a new grad myself. I only been out of business, out of school 3 or 4 years at that time. So I really wanted to hire people that knew more than me about therapy. And so it was pretty intimidating. I kind of focused on hiring the PTs and she the speech, and then together we would hire the OTs. But it was pretty intimidating, and there was such a need. And hiring, we kind of ran away with ourselves, I would say, for a little bit. The hardest part of business, I think, is managing growth and quality. And that started quickly to get away from us, and we're not business people. So we quickly were able to get a really strong CFO that had been in this business around here, and quickly got us back on the right path. Like let's have some strategic planning that we had never done, and let's have some controlled growth. And that was super helpful. I mean, I think everything happens for the reason, and we got some of the best people that are still here that we hired in that 2005 to 2010 era. But everybody wanted to bring their kids there because you could come to one place, get all that you need, and even get resources. I mean, we created the lobby so that it was an environment for parents to sit and talk to each other and feel like they were kind of having like a support group, because that really didn't exist at the time. So we had a waiting list, and we felt like, gosh, we can't leave people sitting on a waiting list. We've got to hire everybody we can get our hands on. Come to find out, that was not the best move. Because then you don't get all the best people, and we want the best people. So having someone come in, like I said, and help us manage that was super helpful.
What would you say to someone who maybe you just said, hey, we're not business people, but like who would call themselves that? Like they've got this big passion. They feel a big why behind what they're doing. But like, what advice would you give someone at that place?
I would say, seek out some external supports or people, with the expertise in that, but only if they have that same like-mindedness. Because we have, over the several years, hired people that were, excellent in their fields with real estate, with accounting and finance. But it didn't work because they didn't share the same vision that we did. And so they just got so frustrated with us, because sometimes we do things that don't make sense, like that on paper and on the books don't make sense. And so that just doesn't work well with a lot of people. So, but I wish that the CFO that we hired that really was like-minded, but knew the business. Wish we would have got him a little sooner. We would have saved ourselves quite a bit of hardships.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, is that Ed has been so amazing. Like, I know he came when he was supposed to come, but having him, I was thinking about that this morning. Like, any advice I would give would be the business side of the advice, like for a therapist, because we don't learn that in school. And, just so you can do all the things that you want to do. So you have that structure. He has set that up so that we can. And I know when he first came on, he was kind of frustrated at us and he would look at the books and he was like, I don't even know how things work, because the way we do things. And, but then he saw all the good too. And so he put us on a right path so that we can continue to do that. I still share that in orientation with our new hires, is like, Ed has got us in a place where if we need to help a family with something, we can. It's not like, if they need groceries, okay, where, some, like she said, some people who may give you advice in that area or watch your books are like, why are we doing that? Like, they're not paying for their services and they want groceries? No. But that's just, what we want to do and what we feel called to do, and it works, but Ed has got us in that space where we can do that.
It's amazing. So early on, you sign the lease, your practice collectively now is growing. And at that point you have money coming in. Was there capital needed on the upfront to like go sign the lease, or that was, you kind of had that working capital from each of your businesses merging? Was it?
I don't know about you. I didn't have any money.
No. And speech therapy is notorious for not reimbursing as much as some of the other disciplines. And so,
with insurance.
Yeah. So I was the needy one, I think, on the end. So.
No, I think just me working. I mean, I was billing so much personally. Me working and billing, I was just saving everything I had to put toward a lease and hiring people, So that's how we got going, with the help of, loans and my parents. And we never had a lot of debt, because that's just not a place we like to live. But we did have to, we didn't take paychecks for a while, So it's hard, but super worth it. I mean, the payoff is so great, but I don't think that's a thing that a lot of people like to hear.
Yeah.
People think having your business, there's, it's just butterflies and rainbows. But like she said, we were early on trying to bill as much as we can to help the bottom line. And then whatever that looked like. I mean, I think about sometimes, like, especially my oldest child, I felt terrible because she was always the last one picked up at daycare, or even my youngest that way. It was like, oh, I don't want to be that mom. How many times I'd call and it's like 6:00. I'm like, I'm 3 minutes away, but it's like, you have to do what you have to do because you feel this call in your heart to provide these services, but you are mom and, juggling all the balls, as my husband used to say.
Well, and we're in this business because we want to take care of people and help people. And so when you have a therapist too, or an employee that ask for more money or ask for a raise because this or that, like, before more of a plan, okay, here's a raise. And then you have a lot of therapists working, you have no margin on, so having some advisors and people help us with that and get more of a plan for hiring and raises was a game changer. Because everyone needs more money, right? So, and we were suckers for that. So getting that established.
I don't even think we knew about margins till Ed came along. Like, what's a margin? Is that like on the is that like on the typewriter?
Yeah. He's like, well, you don't have one.
You're in the negative.
Yeah.
So when did Ed come on? And he's your CFO, to be clear for anyone listening.
It was like 2010. I feel bad not knowing exactly.
Yeah, it was 2010.
So he's been here for all of the the massive growth that y'all have experienced. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's been really helpful. I think the biggest thing is that, so we wanted to do things that you can't do with the kind of business model we had. We don't want to turn a kid away if they don't have funding. It's not the kid's fault. They have a disability or they have a delay. They still need services. So we don't want to turn them away. Like she said, we want to help them with groceries. We want to help them with transportation. If they need an accessible van or whatever that's not covered, we want to help them with that. But our business model, like billable speech and PT, it doesn't fund that.
Yeah.
Right. So thinking outside the box a little bit. Okay, what can we do in Northwest Arkansas or wherever so that we can continue to fulfill our mission, that we feel like why we're here, why we're doing this. And so just getting a typical preschool, buying that, which is crazy.
That was a whole nother God situation, because I was working at church on a Friday night for a parents' night out event, and my friend that had owned it at the time, in passing, we're working together. We weren't even working in the same room. She's like, we're thinking about selling. We feel it on our heart. We want to go a different direction. I'm like, la, 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 I can't hear you. Because Ed had said, you guys should get like a preschool. And we were like, no, all the regulations that go with preschool, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't learn that. We can't learn that too. And so I remember getting in my car in the church parking lot, like 9:40 on Friday night. And I call Ed and he's like, let's meet with her Monday. Find out what time she can meet Monday. But it was like, again, God's hand in that, because it was just like, he knew we needed that cushion to keep this ministry going, mm-hmm. And as Ed says, to diversify our funds and, our business. And so, it's been crazy. Yeah. Again, another thing that you think, I would have never.
Yeah. How do you communicate your why, like to each other, internally, to other people outside of children's therapy team? Like you said, like, hey, that this is what's been driving you to. How do you keep reminding yourself of that, and like, what do you tell each other that is?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
I mean, I think for me personally, it's my life, because I have my 20-year-old now who's going to be full care her whole life, so it's a constant reminder of why we're doing this, and the services that she's been able to get through T.E.A.M and the resources. It's just made my life so much easier and her life so much better. So I have that constant reminder. Mm-hmm. But honestly, like, if you came here at like 2:30 on and saw the transition in the middle out here in the breezeway that we were at, with the parents and their kids with multiple disabilities, with cerebral palsy or cancer or whatever they have going on, like, it is just at the forefront of your brain. Mm-hmm. It's not, we're blessed in the fact that it's right there in front of you. So to keep like pounding in our mission and culture to employees, we don't really have to do that, because it's there. And if you don't feel that or get it when you see all the kids and families coming in and out, probably shouldn't be here, and we try to figure that out on the front end. But you don't always, people can say anything. People do the best interviews now. I don't know, like all the YouTube stuff and everything, and the resumes with like AI. I'm like, man, it is like game changer, right? But until you see them in action and you see if it carries out while they're here, it's a blessing that it's right in our face.
Yeah. And so what did that look like early on? We'll go back to that 2005, 2010. Then we'll move to kind of the mid-life cycle of your business, talking about the school and some of the other amazing things y'all have done. You're just starting to hire people, and you probably don't have experience hiring people. So you're kind of learning through mistakes, right? Which is the best way to learn, the hardest way to learn, but the best way to learn. What were some of those mistakes y'all made early on? And it could be hiring related. It could be just like, I know we talked a little bit about managing margin and stuff like that. I mean, those are probably just some things y'all learned early on.
I think what Kim said, by just hiring people so that we could get kids in the door. So getting a warm body in there that may have those credentials behind their name may have been a mistake, in some aspects. And then for me personally, like that business structure, like I was saying, I was thinking about this morning when I started out, I didn't have a great accountant to explain all the things. I can remember my husband and I would go to the meetings and we'd walk out and we're like, did you know what he said? No. Did you know that should have been our, dead giveaway that we need to find someone else.
You didn't understand what he was saying.
When he didn't know what he was saying. But we were like both educated people and we're like, it's probably just us, and so just humility to know, like, get someone you can talk to who you can understand. And then someone who can be like, you need to do that differently. So I don't know if that answers your question, but those were some of the bigger mistakes. And then just like, managing people is hard. I know I'm a pleaser. I like everybody to like me. I don't like to cause any, any kind of waves or anything like that. And it's like, sometimes you have to have those hard conversations and that's okay. And so learning how to do those. And I think I'm still learning. But definitely early on, it was like we probably took way more than we should have from employees, and just knowing when, like, it's okay to sit down and have that conversation, because it's for the organization. And the organization are these amazing kids and their families who walk through the door. So I think those are things that I could have done better. Yeah.
That's really good.
I felt like you were going to ask this, so I actually made a couple notes about this.
Oh, nice.
This is the first time someone's done this.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, I did my homework. You're like, listen to some of our podcasts. So I was like, this is a question. She hit the nail on the head with, if I could go back to the 2005 time and know what I know now, it would be like wait for the talent, wait for the right people to come in your door. Don't just hire because there's a need. It's okay to hire people and train them, but they need to be the right fit. You're only as good as, that therapist that's there at 6:30 at night treating a kid. So wait for the right person and ensure that they're the right fit. Also, we just like to start doing things, not knowing if it's a covered thing or if it's aligns with legislation or whatever. Check those things before you start doing them. Not that we did anything wrong or illegal, but started a lot of programs and services not even funded. And so they're funded now. We did the legwork after and got it funded, but maybe we could combine the legwork and starting the services, so it wasn't such a hard time, because I think a lot of maybe entrepreneurs are kind of like a visionary. Want to do this so bad, I just do it. And I don't even worry about, am I ever going to get paid for it? And that's been hard, because then you have to play catch up, so figuring that out. I think, a work-life balance is always so hard. I mean, in the beginning, we poured in those early years, pouring so much time and energy into it. I have some regrets. I have some regrets with my husband. I have some regrets with my kids, and I could have done it and been at the same spot without making that much sacrifice. There's always going to be sacrifices. It's always going to be something my whole family's involved in, I feel like, but I didn't have to take it to that extreme.
We would text and call each other till 3 a.m. in the early years. And I look back and I'm like, why did we do that? We felt like it had to be done right then. And my husband would be the one be like, it'll be there in the morning. And, but like you said, just some of those, that balance. Yeah. And I feel like the next generation is better with the work-life balance. Yeah. But I also know too, as their employers, so to speak, it's good to help them with that. That's what fills their tank too, is when we're considerate of their work-life balance. So maybe learning from our mistakes and encouraging them, and that they're better at that than we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I feel like was so hard in the beginning is when someone would leave. This is our baby. This is everything. You're going to go to you're leaving us. It was like a divorce.
Yeah.
And changing that mindset. And I know it takes time and experience, but being able to now handle that differently is great. But I wish I would have done that better. I don't feel like I treated people right when they left. It's a part of their life, and they did great things while they're a team. You should be happy they're going on and whatever they experienced here, taking it on to the next place. But I didn't necessarily do that with them.
It's hard. Hard. I'm just trying to imagine 2005 through 2010, y'all are working. Are you still going into people's houses? Okay. Yeah. So you're literally on the road all day. You're seeing patients. Then you have to catch up on billing. You're trying to hire people. You're trying to be a mom, a wife.
Right.
What were some of the emotions early on starting? Do you remember just how you felt? I know we talked a little bit about maybe some of the mistakes, but how are you feeling?
Yeah, you know what? There's so much joy in your business growing. You're this is working.
Exciting.
We are excitement and it's fun and like, let's go, you know? And then you're like, I'm so tired.
Yeah, I was going to say tired.
Yelled at my husband, and I haven't seen the girl I just adopted in a couple of days. Like it's just a range of emotions, you know?
Yeah. My word was gonna be tired too. Just we were busy, and I was gonna say we both had babies. You were right after 2010. I had one in 2009. So you include that. That's not an easy task. And I remember we expanded while I was pregnant with that child, but I can remember even that was my second one. I was still getting in the floor with a girl. I can go drive to her house right now, right over here. But yes, it was so busy and, scary. And then just always, like I said, I already confessed I'm a pleaser, but wanting to do things right. And how, just like, is this what we should be doing? Yes, we should, because we're doing it for, these kids who need it. Mm-hmm. But was it supposed to be right then? I don't know, but just, making big decisions and maybe need to slow down a little bit, moving at a fast pace.
Yeah. And when were you finding time to hire people? When were you interviewing them? If you were in between, were you just like, hey, I've got 15 minutes in between this house and this house. Let's meet somewhere. What did that look like?
What's funny is we just gave a card to one of our OTs that was hired 15 years ago. And she responded back and she was like, I remember you guys interviewing me on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of Saturdays, yeah. Evenings, like she said, missing, being at home with her daughter and husband and, crazy times.
Our patients had been with us for so long, our own patients, that we could easily, reschedule or cancel or something to make that work. We had to start doing that. And then eventually we worked smarter, not harder, and block times for all of that,
even walking through here today, one of the things that was going through my head was the scheduling for all this.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
The amount of like different types of needs. And like, I know we'll get there, but like, crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So early on, the segments of the business were PT, OT, and speech, right? And then kind of getting into the middle of the life cycle. So we'll call it 2010 to 2020. That's probably when some growth's maybe really starting to compound. The school was 2017, Kids Studio. Is that what I read?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Grace School was probably the next thing. I think that was 2010 is when it first opened. So let's talk a little bit about Grace School, because I don't think we've even talked about it.
Yeah, for sure. So I adopted, I had one of my patients. I had two patients. They were both adopted from Ukraine. They were siblings. And so I kind of shared the story about how her mom was sending pictures back and over to Ukraine and like of her kids out in the public. And the orphanage was saying, I can't believe you're taking out in public. How are you transporting them in the car? They're going to school. Like, what in the world? And so she asked me if I could send some materials to Ukraine on how to work with children with special needs. And we just decided to go there and show them. Well, on that trip in 2006, I met Mira Shlava, who is now my Mira. I adopted her in 2007. And she was 4 when I brought her home. She had never left her orphanage. When I met her, her leg was actually tied to the crib. She looked up at me with these big brown eyes, and she was trying to pull to stand. And they had tied her leg to her crib so she wouldn't pull up and flip out. It was to protect her. But I saw her and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to bring her home. You want to bring all those kids home. There's 15 of them in there with 2 workers around the clock. You want to bring all of them home and put it in your backpack. But this one was just like, I knew. So I'm happy to elaborate on that. But after I got her home, she was 4. I looked, she needed to start kindergarten a couple of years later. There's just not any options for her at all. Not of anyone's fault, but the public school has what they have, So another parent and she was an occupational therapist that worked at T.E.A.M. Her kid had cerebral palsy, same age, and was like, why don't we just hire a teacher to teach them? Okay. So let's do that. So we hire a teacher to use a room at T.E.A.M. on Joyce to just teach our 2 kids. And then there was a lot of need. There are a lot of parents that are like, I want that. And so we became a nonprofit and had some different kind of people apply, people that had experience in behavior modification, which is actually what the school needed. And so in 2010, I guess, when we started that, we kind of turned it over to a nonprofit board. It struggled for a lot of years. It's hard. Those kids need one-on-one, if not 2-on-1. And funding that, it just was kind of impossible. And it's hard to ask people for money when there's 6 kids there, you know? So the board struggled. T.E.A.M. eventually took that back over, and it's now under T.E.A.M.'s umbrella. It's not a nonprofit anymore. It has 25 kids, and the wait list has, 30, 40 kids on it. We just signed our second school district contract. So the Bentonville School District and Rogers School District are paying for kids to come there.
Wow.
The goal is to get them back in the public school system. So they come there, get their behaviors under control. These are kids that really aren't functioning, or aren't doing well in the classroom at all. Not doing good, like not able to really go to school, are being sent home for different reasons. Behaviors, throwing computers, injuring themselves, injuring others, that kind of thing.
And what age range are these kids?
They are 5 to 21.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's rare that we get 5-year-olds unless the parents are like, okay, they have autism. They have a diagnosis. We know that the school's not a good fit right now. Otherwise, they're older, a lot of older boys, 12 and up, who have hit puberty or whatever. And now they are really struggling. Like they're not even able to go into the classroom, go into the school. So the idea is that they come in, get their behaviors under control, get them to be able to either function in a classroom setting with a group of people, or get them more on a stable academic track, or both. And then send them back to a lesser restrictive environment, public school or another private school or something like that.
Is there a hopeful or typical time length with how long that takes for, or is every child different?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every child is just so different. And honestly, some of the kids with some more severe autism or more severe behaviors, the grade school is just a better place for them. And it is until they're out of school. And the public schools realize that, and the parents realize that, and they end up staying. And then if we can help them get their GED or whatever we do, or we help them transition into an adult program in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was just birthed out of need.
Yeah.
When it started, though, it was more for just disabilities, and then it's kind of, say, progressed into kids with severe behavioral issues that couldn't be in the school system.
Yeah, it was more for kids, I would say, with physical limitations, kind of wheelchairs or communication limitations, that kind of thing. And it morphed into more of this kids on the spectrum, autism and behavior, kids that have behavior needs. Because the schools, physical limitations, it's actually doing pretty well. We've come a long way.
And you're talking about the public school system?
Public schools,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But like this whole explosion of autism in our world, and the aggressive behaviors and things are hard. And there's just so much research coming down about how to intervene and how to prevent those from happening or how to stop them from happening, that we're trying to stay on top of that. So one, they don't ever start, but once they're there, reduce them.
Mm-hmm.
When you say like explosive, just an amount of kids with autism, are you saying like awareness for it now, or is that?
What is the
more
statistic now?
It's 1 in 34.
Yeah.
It's really high.
It's even,
Yeah.
I think it's 1 in 20 for
Is
males.
Is it 20?
For males.
Males.
Yeah. And so the life expectancy of people with autism, and it isn't any less. And so that's what I meant by explosiveness, just of how many. there are.
And to answer your question, I oftentimes wonder, is it because we're better at diagnosing? Because I can think of kids when I was growing up that probably had that diagnosis, but it was more of just like a cognitive impairment or a behavior impairment. So I think that's kind of where we're at now, is like maybe we're better at diagnosing it, but there also are more. Yeah, there's lots of theories. Yeah. So I love that, the Grace School has come along to help.
But you don't have to have an autism diagnosis to go there. I mean, my daughter's a traumatic brain injury diagnosis. A lot of kids with disabilities have a behavior component. And so that's kind of our focus, is utilizing applied behavior analysis to facilitate academic success. And hopefully that can just be transitioned into a normal, like, special needs program in public schools. Just be part of their program. It's just not there yet.
And for someone who doesn't know what applied behavioral analysis is, will you just give the
10
second?
Yeah.
I know it's not a 10 second.
No, yeah,
topic.
It's not. It's really decreasing interfering behaviors, non-typical interfering behaviors and replacing them with typical behaviors that you can learn. So there are, you've seen kids with autism that are, maybe doing things they can't make eye contact, or they can't learn different things. So you've got to get rid of those behaviors so that they can learn. And it doesn't matter what they look like, as long as they're not interfering with learning.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And it's a very much, it kind of has a bad rap sometimes. There's no punishment. It's all reinforcing. You only reinforce the good. There's no punishment for the bad. It's just ignoring. So it's all about positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
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 Now, finding what those reinforcers are tricky.
Yeah.
It may be a vacuum cleaner. It may be a piece of candy. It may be their favorite song. I mean, who knows what it is?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's hard, is there's so much negative out about ABA, but it is researched and evidence-based. And
people think it's like shock therapy or something, like some really negative thing.
But it's like, it's like you take out the negative component. It's all positive. I mean, who wouldn't want? I always think like high fives and you're doing a great job, or, whatever. We say a paycheck, that's a positive reinforcer, getting your paycheck. But that's what it's about. There's not the negative. When you look online and stuff, people feel like it's, something terrible.
So a lot of growth happening. PTOT speech. Now you've got the Grace School that's opening. Sounds like there was some kind of back and forth between nonprofit and then team as a whole. As you're kind of working through that, the practice is just growing through word of mouth, through kids needing services. Is that like the primary driver of growth? In that time frame?
Really, it is. I mean, one mom telling another mom, I don't know when Facebook came about, but, there's Northwest Arkansas moms or moms in the know. They'll say, my kid needs speech therapy. And then, people will put lots of different providers in there, and T.E.A.M will be one of them. But we don't really have like one referral source, one doctor, one anything. It's just good old word of mouth.
The speech, PT, and OT, those are needs for kids just in general. And then now with the Grace School, you're starting to kind of integrate maybe something different, maybe something more specific to kids with special needs. And speaking, I think you can hear it clearly through your your family and adoption. That's starting to become a bigger passion. You have no education. Do you have any education or background in the special needs, or that's just like you're learning because it's part of your family now and you're trying to figure out how to?
Just learning and hiring the right people that are like-minded, but also like understand what's needed in our community. And not just my family, but all the patients that we saw through T.E.A.M, that the parents were like, well, we can come to therapy anytime because we're home from school today. Well, why are you home from school today? Well, they couldn't go because he threw an iPad, or they don't let him come today because he's constipated. I mean, like all these crazy things. So parents are stuck not being able to work or not being able to do what they need to do because they can't go to school. So knowing that was a need, not just my daughter, I mean, that's what started it, but it would have been a lot easier just to hire a teacher to teach my daughter, And I mean, it was 2010. This is 15 years that we're finally, like literally this year is the year that we have a clear path and have good communication with the school districts, and they're buying in. Because it's expensive to private pay. And we don't want it to be this school for only people that can afford it. We want it to be a school for everybody in our community. And the way to do that is to either through the school districts or some sort of grants or something. But right now, the school districts need help. And we are ready to come alongside them. Not tell them what to do or how to do it, but come alongside them and give them what they need. And so having those great communications with Bentonville and Rogers, like where they're ready to sit down and have conversations about how can we help you? We're not judging you. Like we have a whole school dedicated to this, and we only have 25 kids right now. We want to help. So it's been so good. And I think that they're ready.
Again, it's that team whole atmosphere that I think about, is because it's not we're better than the public school. We're here. We're like, a service. We want to come in and help. Let's all work together to help these kids and their families at wherever they're at. And so that's, I know, what we hope to do, whether it's just with a speech issue, working with the school speech pathologist, or a child that may have mobility issues in the PT, but just that whole team aspect of we all work together. We've all of us have the same training wherever you work. So we're on the same level. So what do we do to help each other?
And between both of y'all, or maybe someone else on the team, who kind of really owns all the different ways that we get funding for the kids? So like you're just talking about through the school districts, insurance, and then there's, I'm sure, maybe you raise money for part of this. How do you manage all of that together?
Yeah, it's kind of a team. Yeah. I mean, it's for sure a team. Looking at things in depth, Now, here's the thing, is that we're still kind of visionaries at heart. So we still kind of just start stuff.
Yeah.
I said I wish I would do better at that, and I have done a lot better. But it's kind of like, I know what the need is. How are we going to get it funded?
Yeah.
Don't ever want to it's so easy to go, oh, this is funded really well, let's do this. And I've caught myself a couple of times going, let's do, but it never works out. Like we really have to determine what the need is and then figure out how to fund it. And we're doing that right now with adult services. Obviously having the school and helping these students who don't go back to the public school or who need transitions into the adult world. Now we're like, oh, now this is lacking in our area. So we've done a little bit better in that we've partnered with somebody that's doing this well in another state. And we also hired somebody full-time that is very passionate about adult services to get this model off the ground. So instead of the old days of, we're going to start working with adults and not getting paid for it, now we're like, this is what we want to do. Here's the model. How do we get it funded? And so this person is lots of trips to Little Rock, lots of trips with legislators, lots of trips because it is kind of funded, but it's not really on the ups.
Yep.
And so we want it to be out there and available for everybody. So we have regular meetings with her and figuring out how to get that funded. Back to your question, it's kind of like we don't turn away anybody. And so we do have quite a few people that we take a really low rate for, or we do hardships for, or we just do pro bono. but we do try to manage that a little better.
I was going to say, I think our billing department is part of the unsung heroes. You know, they're behind the scenes, and they're the ones, I would not want their job. But fighting with the insurance talking with the insurance company, problem solving, but working those claims, because they do all, you know, ABA, PT, OT, they do them all. And, you know, making sure we're getting paid for everything, you know, sending out statements. And then obviously we have Ashley, who's over our operations. I mean, she's amazing, and trying to keep all of those things going in the right direction. We're having to revamp our billing system because of growth, and you know, making sure we are getting paid for services, just being better at that. And so they're kind of they're those people behind the scenes that you forget about, but if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be sitting right here today, because they're working all that, and they don't always get the warm fuzzies of seeing the kids, and that's hard, but they keep plugging away. And, so gosh, I appreciate them, because we wouldn't be, like I said, we wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for them. So
I read Democratic Gazette 2014 company was named Large Business of the Year by Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce. So some growth has really started to happen. Are y'all still just in your Fayetteville kind of area at that point, or have you expanded? I know you've got a place in Siloam, got a place up here, up north. So like, where were y'all at in kind 14. Of that? Yeah.
I think the only place that wasn't really around was Siloam at that time.
Yeah, we were in Bentonville.
Okay.
Location.
Siloam didn't happen till after that.
Right. We didn't have the aquatic. We didn't have the pool. Yeah. We just had Fayetteville location and then a small Bentonville location.
And then 2017, you shared the story about church and the school. This is called the Kids Studio, for those who aren't familiar. Will y'all talk a little bit about the Kids Studio, the business model, who you're really trying to serve, how it, you know, you already talked about how it came about.
Well, the great thing about it is my child had gone through there, so I knew it was great. And they still had a lot of the same teachers, which is not the norm for a daycare preschool. And they had a wait list. So it was like an opportunity that you couldn't pass up, because it was like, it had a good reputation. We didn't want to change its name. People knew it by name. But we wanted to be able to take children who may not, kind of like the Grace School, kids that may not do well in a typical environment, bring in other kids who may struggle in another daycare, or maybe another daycare wouldn't feel comfortable because this little one that's 3 or 4 isn't mobile. Or we've had a little one previously who had cochlear implants. And so hearing loss, with the implants, no loss, but then having to monitor that. So just different needs. We wanted a preschool daycare facility that was accepting to all children. And so I think it was easier for the staff there. We have amazing staff there, but it was like, we're going to help you. If you have one, you know, a child come through the door and you're like, oh my goodness, we're a phone call away, you know, and we'll be there to support you. And they truly have been amazing. One of the little ones that's at the Grace School started at Kids Studio, and he was not thriving at his daycare in Huntsville, and his parents drove him all the way from Huntsville to Kids Studio and his twin every day. And then one was able actually to transition to regular kindergarten, and one is going to the Grace School. But it was because of the work that the staff there did, you know, getting him used to that, you know, school environment and just being around other kids. And so that's really the goal there, is that we can make it a very inclusive community. So the business model, gosh, there's a lot of DHS regulations. Shauna, who is the director there, and Joy, as co-director, I guess is her title. They actually have my oldest child my youngest in a classroom, but they know the ins and outs of all that. Like, we don't have to do anything there, really.
No.
They have it under control. The people come in and do the checks, and they always pass with flying colors. So as far as like a business model and such.
Yeah. I mean, in the
Kim might speak to that.
I mean, taking over someone else's business is tricky.
And that was your first acquisition?
First acquisition.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know which is harder, starting your own or acquiring another one. Because they were so loyal to the person that owned it. They went to work there, I think, for her. She's a great person. And then when we come in, this corporate spot us out. Like, what does that mean? I'm right here.
I live down the street.
Yeah. It was strange. I mean, there's 205 kids there, 48 staff, and only 5 of the original staff, which is not something that we keep people forever,
Yeah.
And so it was tricky. Acquisition was tricky. And I was ready not to keep it. And then COVID hit, and I was really ready not to keep it. But
just because of all the regulations, or
we were still it was really 2018 when I think we took it over. And so we were in the process of finding staff that wanted to be there. And it was a hard time already. And then the pandemic. So we moved. She mentioned Ashley Stewart, our COO. She just went there full time. She can do anything. She's like the fixer. She can fix anything. And figured out who needed to stay. And so, like she said, the directors out there are amazing. And it just runs by itself, which is so great. But it wasn't always the case.
Yeah, it sounds like it took a lot of work to get there. And I mean, what percent of the students have disabilities that couldn't go to a normal day? It's pretty integrated, it sounds like, with...
Yeah, it's not very high, but we do have, I don't think we know for sure. We do have a full staff of therapists there. We do have PT, OT, and a few speech therapists that stay there and kind of work with children all day. But I don't know that those kids couldn't go somewhere else.
Okay.
So there's probably 3 or 4 that really couldn't go to another daycare that are there.
Out of the 205.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's so
it's
funny.
A small percentage.
My 2-year-old is there now. My surprise 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny that yours went there.
Yeah.
Tell us about the building we're sitting in now. And that maybe, I don't know if that's last 5 years, is it kind of bringing us up to speed, or tell us about why y'all did this, when y'all did this, kind of the heartbeat behind it.
Yeah, sure. So, kind of one of the things we had my very first job, like I said, was aquatic therapy. And although that pool was freezing, it stuck with me. The kids were so eager to come to therapy. These are kids that sometimes are in therapy their whole life. So to do part of their therapy session in a pool and get the same benefits is amazing. Who doesn't look forward to that? And the benefits of pool are just huge. And so it kind of always stuck with me back from, 1999 at that first job. And so 2017, I think it was the pool area. This space is like 3 separate buildings, but the pool area became available for rent. Northwest Medical, it was their rehab, and they weren't going to use it anymore. So we rented it, and we lost a lot of money. And it was not, we never made money here.
Yeah.
At the aquatic location. To keep that pool, like you guys went out there, that air temperature and the pool and everything going is a lot. Even though we leased it, we still.
And talk about that, the air temperature reason and pool temperature reason, like we were
talking
about.
So we keep the air temperature 1 to 2 degrees warmer than the water. And the water's already, anywhere from 92 to 95 degrees. And so we keep the air temperature 1 to 2 degrees warmer so that the benefits of the water for kids with spasticity or any kind of muscle tone issues when they get out of the water, they can maintain the benefits of the warm water pool, and they can take what they practiced in the pool and immediately begin practicing it on land so that we have that carryover. If you get out and you're shivering and freezing, you lost all those benefits. So we keep it therapeutic. And it's like I don't know of any other place that is available. One, because it's a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
So, but it's so beneficial. And so we leased that space with the pool, 2 pools. It's great to have 2 pools that are on 2 separate systems because you have kids in the pool. So a lot of times you have to shut them down.
Yeah.
You have code browns quite often. So you got to shut one down.
You have the pool guys on speed dial.
Yeah. Yeah. But we also had our other location in Bentonville. We had 2 locations in Bentonville, and we had the pool. And so we wanted to all be in one place because a lot of our kids do go back and forth between therapies, and it's hard to bring them from another. We want it to be easy for parents and not have to drive them to separate places.
Yep.
So we wanted to buy this place, but it wasn't for sale. So we ended up buying something on Walton, and literally before we could do anything with that space, the owner of the Agility Center was like, "I'm ready to sell."
Great.
I don't know what we're going to do.
I remember Kim saying, I wasn't going to be a property manager or property owner.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But it all worked out, and we were able to lease all of Walton and the one on Walton and purchase this place. And so we're all together, and the therapists have their own space and treatment rooms, and it was already built out. It's the ideal place for speech therapy specifically. All the rooms have sinks, and they're small. It's just great.
It's a great location here in Bentonville.
It's so great.
28th Street.
Yeah.
It's very central.
Yeah. I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for the kids and families that come here. Yeah.
Even down to the covered drive-through,
drop-off.
thinking about parents who are trying to unload children who may have mobility issues and chairs or all that. But I mean, it's just like those little things that, some of us who haven't experienced that don't think about. And it's like, oh, that makes me happy that we can do that.
Yeah, it's a dream. Every time I take Mir anywhere, if it's raining and it's covered, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So great. Yeah.
I love that. So I guess kind of bring us up to speed now, current state of the business. Y'all have 5 locations?
Let's see. We have a Siloam clinic, and then we have our Fayetteville location that's in 3 separate buildings. One of those is for the grade school. And then we have our Bentonville location here. And then we have the ABA clinic that's on 22nd Street.
Yep.
That's just a clinic for applied behavior analysis. And then we have the kids studio. Yeah. So we're looking. Fayetteville needs more space. We need more parking. It is administrative staff has to park down the road, and we pay some of our staff to carpool. So we don't have parking. So it's a tricky situation, and we're out of space. So if anybody out there knows of something,
if you're listening,
are you the one in real estate? Who's in real estate?
Yeah.
We're moving our billing and admin offices to give more space.
Yeah, because the waiting list we kind of share space with the Grace School, and so they need our space. And so if we can't find anything, we'll work from home for a bit. But after you buy a building, it's so hard to rent.
Yeah.
It's
well, especially because you're long-term invested here, like, emotionally, blood, sweat, tears, everything. It's like,
here.
It's,
yeah,
different outlook.
I'm trying to convince our admin staff to drive we have a little spot on Pinnacle, but you would ask that. I think I asked them to
drive to Siloam.
Yeah. Well, yes. Or somewhere else. Like, no way.
Yeah.
And then there's me. I was like, I'll take the whole place.
Yeah.
Like, it's free.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So 5 locations, and just the scale of the business for someone who doesn't have kids in y'all's realm, whether it's employees or revenue. I mean, I think we've captured a lot of it through the locations and how many families you serve. Just what would be some size scale of the business?
We see about 1,500 kids a week for therapy. So that's a lot. I wouldn't know how to give you a family number. I mean, most families have one child, but there are lots of families that have multiple children that come in. So, as Kim said, anywhere from birth to 21 years of age, we can, and now with a different funding source, we can go a little higher than 21, which makes it nice because we get super attached and we want to keep going with them. So we can go up into the mid to late 20s with some of our kids too. So yeah, Kim knows better probably number on employees and such.
Yeah, if that's, we have like 233 employees. Yeah, between all the locations and things. We are on things just happened yesterday with the adult service model that I'm super excited about. So I think that's probably if I had to guess, gonna grow quite a bit in the next couple of years. The model that we're working on with the partner in Kansas is we just got 2 funding sources to approve the model, big funding sources in Arkansas. And people adults with disabilities use a hybrid model of managed care. And there's 4, and 2 out of the 4 have approved the model. So, it's going to be so great.
Wow.
I'm not really sure where they're going to go or how it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. So, that's really exciting.
We have so many families that are excited about that just because, for so many years we work to help our kids become independent, to do most of what they can themselves. And so this will give them that ability. There's different tiers, so to speak, of how they can live, but they can live independently with some help all the way down to, 24/7 in a situation with a family who, would take care of their needs and help them. And so it's not that their own families don't want to keep them, but these kids want some independence, or these young adults want some independence. And so this program will help that. And I know we have one young lady who's just chomping at the bit to kind of have that independence and live with other peers who are like her.
Yeah.
And you've another thing you forget is like they have that desire too. They may not want to live with mom and dad forever, but have some peer groups and a social life, so to speak. So yeah,
you didn't really ask about this, but the best thing about this adult program is that I said that we kind of hired somebody to be in charge of it, but she has an advisory group that is made up of individual adults with disabilities that really is driving the whole thing. Like they're the people speaking to the legislators. They're the people out in the community trying to make a difference because they can speak to it firsthand, and they're just so excited.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
It's just really encouraging and incredible to me. Like, it feels like you've never lost sight of the ground floor, what's going on in a day-to-day. With as big as the organization is now, it's like it hasn't changed, and how much both of you care about the experience from the parking lot. And for anyone listening, I'm like, that's what's really, really.
Yeah. The culture is important to us.
Yeah.
And I think, whenever we were working on a title for me, it was like I was going to be the culture club or the culture leader. We were being funny about it, but it's like, Becky, who does a lot of work for us, again, another person. I know we've probably forgotten people, but it's not just us. There's so many people behind the scenes. But she came up with that chief experience officer. And I was like, oh, that's cool. CXO,
Yeah.
But that's like, I want there to be that good experience for that family coming in. That doesn't mean they stay here. The providers in this area, for the most part, we communicate on a regular basis. We're a part of a group where we work together. And sometimes we are not the right fit for that family, and it's finding that right fit. And that's an experience. Like, I want them to trust me, and I want to build that rapport with them. And if I can get them in here, great. If they need to go to another provider because of their skill set, let's do it, but yes, the experience and the culture, that's hard. I think Kim was getting to that when you were talking about the growth and the size in the beginning. It was like we felt like the culture piece, we were losing that because we were out, as we say, in the trenches more, treating and the gyms and stuff. And so we could see the things happening and help where needed, or whatever is needed, take out the trash or whatever. But culture is so hard, and you want to keep that culture, and you got to find those people, which she touched on more than once, but you got to find those people that have that same culture and want to have that same culture, that same passion. And so, that's it. It truly is challenging.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah. Like you said, starting from the very beginning and keeping it going. But gosh, you get the right people in place and you can do it. We have just a tremendous leadership team, and I couldn't be more grateful for them, really.
Yep. Talk about them. How many people are on the leadership team?
Well, we have our clinic managers in each location. And we also have, of course, Ashley Stewart. She kind of leads up everything. We talked about our directors at the daycare. We've mentioned Ed, Becky, because she's even out of state, but she helps us with all the things. I can't even tell you. She's communications officer, I believe is her official title. Whitney starting up the adult program. Those are all of our leaders.
There's about 10 of us.
And have been with us. Like, nobody's new, They've kind of, been here along the way. And, I think that's great too. Cause I see in them is they also feel like they have as much skin in the game, so to speak, as Kim and I, like they love this place just as much as we do. And I think one thing that really struck me years ago, this might be when the tears start. Becky was working on our chart that shows leadership. And, I was thinking about this morning, but Kim, a lot of times they start with the CEO and they go down when you make that chart. And Kim was the one, she was like, I want to be at the bottom, and it goes up from there. It's all the people, that the therapist, the billing department, and then it comes down to the CEO. She's like, I'm not at the top. And then it's like when you hear one of your leaders say that, you're like, I'm in the right place, And so Becky was kind of like, well, the CEO is always at the top of the organizational chart. And Kim's like, I'm not there. They get into it. Yeah. They get into it, and it's fun because they've been friends forever. And she's like, I'm at the bottom, But that just goes to show you like her heart and what this is. This isn't about us. This is about team and how we take care of our community. And so, and our employees, So,
man, Becky, the lady she was talking about, she's director of communications, lives in Omaha. And we cheered at Fayetteville High School together, captain and co-captain.
That's amazing.
From 91 to 94. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
We were best friends. And then she's got a teacher by trade, but just someone that's like, you get it. You get what we need to do. Yeah. And so just came back in 2012. Yeah. Came to work for us. And it's really cool.
Well, it's really cool that y'all have been able to figure out however all this happened together, but passion and then business came together. Like that. I don't know. Just, I guess one of the things popped into my head, it was like, what would you tell people that you're extremely passionate people? What would you say? Like, is there a world where you should not combine that with starting a business? You know, or hey, yes, definitely combine that with starting a business, and here's why.
Yeah, I mean, I think starting a business is just, it's hard, and if you're not passionate about it, I don't know how you could do it. Really, I wouldn't want to do it if I wasn't passionate about it.
Because there's some people that's their mantra. It's like, hey, just go figure out what's going to make money, go start it, and
you're 100% right. No, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And I would say my husband is probably more like that.
Yeah.
You know, for me, that's just not I wouldn't want to make all the sacrifices that I've made if it's not something that I was so passionate about. I would probably just, you know, go work somewhere that my time could be more managed. Or probably I just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Let's go into the stay-at-home mom phase. No. So that's really good. I mean, I don't know if that's like two separate, different kinds of people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously we did not go to business school or finance or anything like that. So it's not in our forefront. It probably should be, but for my personality, it's not something I could do if I wasn't so passionate about it.
I know. I'm a firm believer in doing what you love, you know, and usually what you love, you're passionate about. And I can't imagine doing anything else, but like, you're right. Some people do it. But
I mean, the people that make the biggest difference in our community and probably are the people that are really passionate about what they're doing, not just there to make money.
Yeah.
You know, because we do, I mean, we really, really do. I know you said that you get it, but we really do want the trajectory of people with disabilities in Northwest Arkansas to look different. Mm-hmm. It's not a good trajectory. Mm-hmm. It's kind of grim as they go into adulthood. Mm-hmm. And so we want them to, if we can help them be as successful as possible by working with them as their children. And then when they become adults, continue that progress. It doesn't just end, but continue it and then find the best environment for them. I mean, I don't know anybody in our community that doesn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's something people can get behind. And we feel like it's up to us. I do. I feel like it's up to me.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that last time. It's not great.
No one's doing it.
Especially for my daughter. Like kids like my daughter, if she doesn't live with one of her siblings, like she's in a bad spot. Mm-hmm. It's almost like an institutionalized place for her.
Yeah. So
we just can do better. We have a lot of resources. This is the best place to live. Mm-hmm. I tried to go somewhere else. Northwest Arkansas is the best place. We have great resources.
Yeah.
You guys have met a lot of those people probably, you know. Yeah. We can make this happen.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing. We'll talk about this at the end, but you shared this already, but my brother, he's 30 and he's, you know, getting diagnosed with special needs 30 years ago was a lot different than it is now, which you already addressed. And so I think what's really inspiring for me is to see that y'all are just looking at needs and then you're just plowing through the door. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit of the Lord. It's a little bit of brute force, a little bit of amazing team that you have around you. It's all the above.
You're absolutely right.
Did you say stubbornness?
Yeah.
But that sure is encouraging to just watch founders see needs and meet needs. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything else that y'all think is good to know that on the organization right now? We want to talk about maybe more of what's next, like you were alluding to, and then a couple of things kind of to wrap up here. But anything else I may have missed right now about the organization, because there's so much different things going on.
I guess the only thing we really didn't touch on was the ABA clinic, where kids can go. You know, we talked about all the separate, like the kids studio and the Gray School, but we do have the separate ABA clinic here in Bentonville. Mm-hmm. So kids can get ABA there. They may not, you know, the Gray School is founded on ABA principles, but there may be kids that go to school and come to ABA after school, or little ones that are doing PT, OT, speech, and ABA. Or sometimes they need to start with ABA first, and deal with some of the behaviors and then add in the speech, OT, and PT. So, so it's kind of in a separate building from here. So definitely don't want to forget about them because they're doing great things. And the wait list there is even longer than the one at the Grace School, I think. So there's just so many needs. Sometimes that's what's hard is at night you're like, and when you have that fire in your belly to provide those services, it's hard to not find those services. But we want those to be the best that they can be. And so sometimes you just have to wait. Yeah. But we do send them on to other providers, but the other providers are in the same boat, wait lists and such. So there's still lots of need out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I think like right now it's a good time. We did all the hard work up front to have this group of employees that are been here 10, 15, 20 years, right? And they get what we're trying to do, and they can help kind of raise up the new hires and new grads and determine if they're a good fit and keep that mission going. It's hard when you don't have that solid group, even though maybe they not be on the leadership team or don't have a leadership role, but they're just in the building or they're mentors or whatever. It's just it's a good time because we have so many of them. It's like, I want to capture this. Like, it's a good time right now. Maybe a few years ago when it was a lot of people were leaving, there's always these generational things that happen and figuring those out. Oh, super tricky.
Yeah.
But just staying focused on why we're here and having that solid group that have been here so long that can carry it out is just great. And it allows you to do other things.
Yeah.
It allows us to say, like, someone wants to, we have a program where we help people get a communication device if they can't speak, but they need a device to communicate on. Usually they have to go to Easter Seals in Little Rock. Or is U of A still doing it?
No, not right now.
Only option to figure out what device you're going to learn to talk on. Like, that's really hard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, it's just an example of someone wanting to bring something into the community that we don't have that we're really not going to get paid for.
Mm-hmm.
But because we put the work in up front and we've got some other established programs, she can just run with it. Mm-hmm. And I think we got like 28 devices last year or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the things that was so hard because when you do those, when you're trialing devices, when they go to Easter Seals, they're not with people they know. Yeah. They're with strangers. And it was like talking to Kim and it was like this, and she knew it, but I was like, they're not going to do their best. They're going to be scared. They're with new people. Let's do it here, and, it was a group effort, but it just makes sense, because you're picking a device. Sometimes they only buy one a lifetime. So you want to make the best choice. Yeah. And so you want to have the best environment. You want to have the changes. Yeah. But you want to make the best choice for that child. So you do the trials for 3 months with someone that knows them, not someone in Little Rock who's probably wonderful. But, the kids that are needing those oftentimes are in situations where new people can be hard. And so just like little things like that have come up and it's like, okay, we can do that better.
And it's a good time because we have those people here that are established, that are staying, and we trust them to start those new programs.
Yep.
Because before it's like, it's just on us to start it. It's nice. I like this. I like the spot we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is amazing.
Before we go to your part, is there just one? I know y'all probably have a million stories, but is there one story that just, if there's a parent out there who is just struggling, they have a kid has some disabilities and they're just in a tough spot, is there a story you could share of like, you obviously can't share names and stuff like that, but like this kid came in and like, here's what was happening, and we got to see him or her leave doing X, and they weren't doing that before they came in, or just...
There's lots of those. I'm trying to think of one. I mean, there's lots of stories about kids who've been given a diagnosis that the physician or whoever has laid a pretty grim, outcome or life, right? And so kids almost always exceed our expectations, 100%. My very, very, probably my third patient out on my own that I went to their house to see, I got a call from a therapist. She's like, I'm seeing this kid at home, and my parents are demanding we come 5 times a week. It's a really impossible family. And it's like, I'll go. I don't have 2 patients.
Yeah.
Send me. And so I went out there, and it's like a tiny, really, literally like a couple weeks old. And he has arthrogryposis, which is where your joints don't bend. Well, not only was he, usually they're stuck kind of bent. His were stuck in extension, so stuck straight. So it's actually like the more rare form. And I'm still a new grad. I've been out of school a year, right? And I'm going to start seeing this kid 3 times a week, and this therapist that's really experienced is going to see twice a week. Well, I was in my head, this kid is going to be in a wheelchair and really have a really hard life. Just based on what was going on then. So many things happen with this kid, from learning how to navigate communicating with parents to learning from an experienced therapist. Now this kid, he's getting ready to graduate from the U of A. He worked at Chick-fil-A at the drive-in, walking his entire college career. He's getting ready to don't we get a tear in your eye? He's getting ready to graduate from the U of A, and he knows exactly what he wants to do. He lives independently. Never in a million years thought that. And it, not only, just me being in that situation, he's probably seen 20 therapists at T.E.A.M. He still comes to T.E.A.M. because he still needs intervention, even though he's graduating from college. He was one of the reasons we needed a pool. You have all these surgeries, you get your, arms and legs bending, and you need to keep that range of motion. But he's kind of I feel like the poster, he needed all things. It wasn't just PT. It affects all parts of your body. So it's really cool. And then my other story would be just a mom from Bentonville who is her and her husband have businesses in the area. They have a younger son, and their older son was being sent home from school every single day. She's like, we can't continue to live the life that we, dreamed of or whatever. I'm picking him up every day from school. His behaviors were out of control. He was hurting himself. He's hurting other people. It's not like the parents didn't have resources or funding to pay for what he needs, but they were stuck. Because they hired somebody to pick him up when the school called and said, you got to pick him up. We can't control him. And they were just out of luck. So we took him on in the Grace School. We hired 2 full-time people to be with him. And now, we never call the parents. There's no reason we would ever call the parents unless they're running a fever or throwing up. You can't do anything. You can't hurt yourself, hurt others, throw a computer, whatever. That's what we're trained to do at the Grace School. And so Mom's world has changed, and he gets out of the car, walks in, goes to his classroom, gets his stuff out. He's on a reward system. Yesterday, he's so excited because he just got a new phone case. They weren't earned bucks. And so he ordered a new phone case off Amazon because he had so many consecutive things in a row that were good. It has changed her life, her husband's life, their son's life. It's amazing. So that's another really.
I think the biggest thing too, to encourage a parent, is that we treat the child. We don't treat the diagnosis.
Yep. It's perfect.
The only reason why I need a diagnosis is if I need to help you get funding. And so that's what I try to push. Yeah. I love to mentor. I love to to teach. And it's like, I don't care anything about your diagnosis, honestly, because I'm going to treat your deficits, and your deficits look different than this child's deficits and all that. The only time you need a diagnosis is for funding. And that's it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't say what your child's life is going to be like, what it's going to look like, prognosis and all that. I mean, like she said, we've had kids come in here and they've been told this, and it's like, okay, well, where are we going to start? You know, and I think to encourage parents, because I know they may not even be in our community or wherever they may be in our community, but make sure your provider, I'm passionate about that. Like, just start at the beginning. And, so, you know, one situation that I go back to is I had a child and this was when I first started, and I was going to his daycare to see him, and the physicians had said he had seen the developmental pediatrician at Arkansas Children's. He's never going to talk. He has apraxia. He's never going to talk. And wasn't exposed to apraxia when I worked in public schools, but I'm like, I'm private practice. I may get these. I did some training, talked to some experienced therapists, and worked with that child. And he talks, you know, and it's not because of me. His parents did we game planned, and it's like, okay, we did this. They did it all the other days of the week. I was only with him 45 minutes or, you know, once a week or whatever. But, I think that is like, take that information, do with it whatever you need to do with it. But no, you know, there are plenty of providers out there that want to help you and help you to help your child, empower you, help advocate for you. And that's what we want to do here, you know, so.
Kind of getting towards where we're wrapping up here now. You talked, you know, a little bit about what's next on more the adult side. Is there anything else maybe coming up next for T.E.A.M here that you want to share today, or anything else you're dreaming?
We've always teased about having a 30A clinic. Maybe it won't be a tease anymore.
That's amazing.
I know. I saw a kid that needed therapy in St. Thomas.
Yeah. I'm only joking.
That's great. Yeah.
It's a great question. I honestly have never been able to answer that question. I feel like I've been asked that a lot. And I can say that we are going down the road of adult. We want to keep providing the quality. We're continuing to grow. Quality is like top thing. If we stop growing and have the quality, great. Unlike 2005, we have so many competitors now.
Yeah.
We didn't really have any competition then. It was a lot easier as far as there's no marketing or anything like that. But I mean, I think it's once a month, someone's sending us a picture of a new clinic or speech clinic or something popping up. Arkansas improved the funding. It was really great to help with that. We hadn't had like a raise, so to say, in, was it 14 years?
Wow.
And so they increased the rate that they pay. And then all of a sudden, everybody's opening up therapy clinics. And so we have a lot of competition in Bentonville, especially with the growth and everything. And so whether we grow or not, like quality is number one. So looking ahead to the future, we're going to maintain that quality at really whatever costs. Yeah. That's the most important thing. And then just meeting the needs. So right now, the need presented at our front door is our kids that have grown up at T.E.A.M needing adult services. And so that's where we're going to go. But if there's another need that arises and opportunity presents, we'll jump through that hoop too. Whether we do it or someone else does it, will help get it off the ground.
Yeah. I think that's what's been fun about our journey, is just wherever the Lord leads us, because we would have never, as we've said before, we would have never thought we would have been sitting here today. And so it's kind of hard to project what that need will be. But I love that we've learned to keep the quality, keep the culture, what we want it to be. Yeah. But we'll help with that need. But yeah. not at the expense of the ones that are already here.
Yeah. Well, Cindy and Kim, I want both of y'all to answer this question. How do you define success?
I think loving what you do. It's important for me. Loving what I do, giving back. I know a lot of people that I look at and I think, oh gosh, they're so successful, but that's not me. What they do is not me. So I think as long as I can keep doing and I have the health and the strength and the wisdom to keep doing this, I'm successful. I'm happy where I am. I mean, I feel like I said, still pinching myself. This is way more than I ever thought I would do. And, however I need to be used, I'm here and that's success. So.
Yeah. I have a 17-year-old. One of my daughters is 17. And so she's looking at what she wants to do, where she wants to go to college, what.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had this conversation and, I was like, do I say that? Or are we talking about business? But it's, obviously we're Christians and faith is such a big part of our journey, personally and in business, but keeping that, motivation in check. Like we're here for a reason and I want what I do with my family and in business to be what God has called me to do. And so ensuring that I'm walking in his calling is when I feel the most successful. Whether that's, again, with my family, my aging parents, my business, like, am I doing what he's intended me to do? And am I hearing the right voice? Because it is so tricky as you have a lot of voices in your ear and we're competitive. And so hearing the right voice is important. So if I can keep that in check, I would say that's successful.
What is your vision for Northwest Arkansas moving forward in the next 5 years, 10 years? What would you like to see the area?
Right. I mean, on a serious note, it is a great place.
Yeah.
We have great people here.
Yeah.
It's still, a little bit like Southern-ish, and opportunities. I think, again, telling my 17-year-old, you can do anything you want to do in Northwest Arkansas. The opportunity, I feel like, is limitless. With the resources and still the way of cost of living is, and you can do anything you want to do. But it just is the same thing for our future in Northwest Arkansas, is to meet the needs of the community for children in need and now adults with needs, to meet the needs the best we can. And again, it doesn't have to be through us. It may be facilitating someone else doing it, but making those needs aware and then doing what we can to meet them. Yeah.
I think I think sometimes our families have to travel outside of this area to get certain services. And I would like to be able to have services here. Can I do those? No, probably not. But I see that coming with all the growth. I mean, you can go down the street and see the new home office. It's insane. You think, am I in New York City or am I in Bentonville, Arkansas? So I think it's coming, but, it's kind of like we were in the beginning trying to catch up, to the need and the growth. I think that's where we're at, because we have families that still have to leave our area for specialists or, certain kinds of evaluations or things. I would love to, if that's the question you're asking, that's what I would love to see for Northwest Arkansas. And I'm always willing to talk to somebody about it who might be, in a position to make that happen. But I know it'll happen probably organically with the growth and the people that come through here, but that's what I would love to see for our community.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, one thing we like to do at the end of every episode is we like to just kind of capture what we learned from y'all. And I think the first thing that was really clear, and Cameron asked some amazing questions, really illuminating, I think, how y'all are gifted, is you're just very purpose driven. And different founders have different purposes, and y'all's purpose is really clear, and it's to serve kids in our community. And that's whether they're 6 weeks old or they're 22 or 30, and they need something that we don't have. And so we're so thankful for that. And it's really fun to watch. And I think a lot of people can learn from that. The next thing was team, and it's in your name. And I think that makes it even more special, as y'all have committed exactly what you set out to do when you made the name of your company. And you talked about, I thought one thing that was really interesting, you even talked about the parents of the families that you're serving and how they're part of the team. And I think it speaks a lot to, and I can't speak to other practices, but probably a differentiator in how y'all are serving kids relative to other people in the community. And so just really, really fun to hear that. I think the quality piece is really admirable. Like, growth is not a bunch of buildings, a bunch of employees. It's kids growing through and learning and developing through, and maybe overcoming things that they never thought they could overcome when they had a diagnosis. And I think that's super inspiring. And then the last thing, and I said it before, but I think it's the most powerful thing we learned being here, is just founders who see a need and meet the need, and y'all represent that so well. And I don't think that's not table stakes. That's not common. It's just, so it's really inspiring. And I think that people listening will be really inspired to just see how you guys keep seeing a need and just keep going through the door and just being faithful step by step. So we we're thankful for the time and learned a ton from y'all.
Yeah.
So
it's always fun to sit down. I think I mentioned to Kim after we met with you the first time, we need to do that more often, because you kind of forget, it's been a few years. I slept a few times, but all the many blessings and the fun stuff. I mean, we get to do fun stuff. A lot more than the icky stuff. So, meaning dealing with insurance companies and different stuff like parking lots and clogged toilets. Yeah. But yes, it's amazing.
Well, Cindy Watson, Kim Hanna, how can people find out more about y'all or more about Children's Therapy Team?
Yeah, website, social media. You can message any of those, direct message, or all the contact information is on our website. We also get out our personal cell phones.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. Thanks for the time.
Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.